How you guys doing? So, what we're going to cover in this one is claims of fact, policy, value, and causation. So, there is a handout in this module, so make sure you have that. I will be referring to it. I will also be adding a little bit to it so that you have a fuller understanding of the concepts and how you need to be aware of them. Okay. So, the first thing we have to understand is a claim is not a fact unless it's proven to be a fact. So when we talk about a claim of fact, somebody is saying, I think this is true and factual. And now we have to evaluate whether that claim is legit. Same goes for policy. If somebody says, this is the policy we need, that is their claim. They claim we need this policy. Now they have to demonstrate that that need for that policy is legit. When people want to legalize weed or decriminalize or whatever, they are making a policy claim saying our society will be better if we do this policy. Okay. For causation, it is a subcategory of fact. Okay. So, what do I mean by that? If you say A caused B, that's either factually true or factually not true. Okay. So, if I say something like, so an example from me when early in college. My first F in college was in calculus. I was highly unmotivated. I didn't go to the last 3 weeks of class. I missed the final exam. It was a disaster. F all day long. If they could have, they would have given me a G or an H or something. It was a bad, bad grade. Now, I can claim, and I would have to prove to you within reason that the cause of my failure in that class was actually the depression that I was experiencing because I was struggling. And I ended up having to go to therapy for a little over a year to work through some motivation issues, some self esteem issues, things like that. I was 17, 18. So I am making the claim my F in calculus was caused by my depression. And that's not to avoid responsibility, but just to call it what it is. My parents ultimately would agree. I now have to prove that to you, okay, going through a lot of different things. And I'm not going to do that here, but that's an idea. I'm trying to make a claim. My F in that class was not me skipping class. It wasn't me not going to the final exam. Those were symptoms of a larger issue, right? My depression reduced my motivation. It reduced my confidence in being able to do the course. So I gave up, things like that, okay? Now, when we talk about claims of what's the other one? Value. Part of that is monetary, but also part of that is importance. Okay. Moral value. So if we say doing this thing is the right thing to do, the morally correct thing to do, that is a claim of value. Okay. We think it is just and right for us to, in this country, I believe I would make the claim of value that this country has a responsibility to care for those who can't care for themselves. And so whether that is through SNAP benefits to make sure that children who are impoverished are getting the nutrition that they need to grow up to be healthy, they're getting the health care they need, things like that. I think those are of value, right? Those are important. So I'm going to make the claim that is important, that is of value, and our society should prioritize it. Those children have done nothing to be neglected or left behind. Okay, so I'll switch over to the handout and just show you a little bit of it. I'm not going to get into too much detail on it because you can look it over in more detail on your own. Okay, so here we go. So, claim of fact, a statement about how things were in the past, how they are in the present, or how they will be in the future, right? So when we're looking at that, what we're talking about is, are we going to successfully prove a factual statement? So a classic example is a giant asteroid hit in the Yucatan Peninsula, I believe, on the eastern edge of Mexico near Guatemala, and it was an extinction level event. It basically blacked out the sun, and the giant lizard dinosaurs died. So people are making that factual scientific claim. They now have to prove that beyond a reasonable doubt. Let's put it that way. And that has been widely accepted, not by everyone, but by nearly everyone, as the primary cause of the dinosaurs' extinction. So we weren't there, so they have to prove convincingly through scientific data and observation, digital modeling and all this kind of stuff that did indeed happen. Okay. The causation claim, as I said, subset of factual claims, direct link between a cause and effect, a claim of value. So here's an example. Victoria is a better place to go for summer vacation than Calgary, both in Canada. Uh, I have Canadian in-laws who debate this. So what makes a claim arguable is different people may disagree on the criteria used to evaluate something. Differing value claims may be used to argue on a variety of topics. Okay. Defending a value claim involves offering a set of criteria for consideration. Defending the set of criteria is legitimate and showing how applying criteria justifies the claim. For example, let's say you are trying to demonstrate that racial profiling by the police is immoral and unethical. Some people feel like it is a shortcut to efficient policing. They know that a person of a particular, or they believe they know, a person of a particular complexion or ethnicity is more likely to commit a X, Y, or Z crime, right? This is the nonsense BS that basically if you're brown, you're undocumented, the assumption that ICE is making right now, which is incorrect, grossly incorrect. But that is something that they are trying to argue. Okay. Now, a policy claim is a rule, a law. And so when you look at a rule or a law, you have to decide, is it necessary? Is it right? Is it effective? So if somebody says we need to do this for taxes, or we need to do this to curb ICE or racial profiling, or we need to do this to make the immigration system more efficient, those are claims of policy. Okay. So how does all this play out? Well, when you are looking at AI or immigration, you want to make sure that they're guaranteed there are going to be claims of policy in there about rules. What should we or should we not allow AI to do? Where can it be used? Where should it not be used? Also, what should the immigration policy or laws in this country be? How should they be enforced? Things like that. There will also be claims of value. Should we prioritize helping those who are needy in coming to this country, or should we be prioritizing those who are needy in this country? That's something that we have to weigh out. Where's the value, right? What do we feel is more important? All right. Causation, when they talk about how undocumented immigration leads to or causes these kinds of crimes or issues, that's a claim of causation. All right. A factual claim, when they claim that undocumented immigrants are more likely to commit crimes, that is a factual claim that is quite common. It's also quite incorrect. Study after study has shown that is just simply not true. So if you think in terms of like misdemeanor, maybe, but felony, absolutely not. American citizens are much better at committing felonies than undocumented immigrants. So keeping that in mind, that's how it might break down. So I've got a few examples here for you to look through, okay, for some samples. And then on this page, there are just some answers that you could go through. You don't have to do it on your own. You don't have to do it together. You don't have to do it at all. But if you go through it, just force yourself to ask, what kind of claim is this? All right. And it'll take you 10 minutes, maybe 15, but it'll help reinforce the issues at hand. Okay. All right. I'm going to wrap up before I start to ramble. Too late. And if you have any questions on this, please ask because I'm here to help. Take care.